Media Watch. Now James Creedon is with us in the studio, taking a look at what is making a buzz online. Good to see you, James. We're going to start with this tragic news, of course, from Mali, where 13 French soldiers were killed in anti-terrorism operations. Troops, of course, have been stationed there for several years now. You've got some reaction online.
That's right. As you can imagine, lots of reaction on French language Twitter and elsewhere. Some technical tweets going up showing the collision between these two helicopters. That was the explanation for the 13 deaths. You even have one of our former correspondents in Central Africa and Mali, Anthony Fouchard. He's showing a video here of how these operations actually take place. You have a Cayman helicopter being escorted by a Tiger helicopter. They're going at 240 kilometers an hour. There's only about 100 meters between each of those two aircraft. It was in the middle of the night, and they're only 40 meters off the ground. So actually, these sort of things can happen when you're in a hostile terrain like that. So that would explain partly what happened. Obviously, the French army on their official Twitter paying homage to each of the 13 soldiers individually. Some of them as young as 22. Others, fathers of numerous children. It's really terribly tragic. So they've been each getting a little individual biographical homage online. Actually, interesting detail. One of the soldiers was the son of a senator. There's, I suppose, often this perception that soldiers on the fields of battle are, not of the same sort of background as people who would be represented in Parliament and whatnot. But this is a case where one senator had a son actually there. So lots of people mentioning that. What else? Just a very quick whip through some of the reactions. You had the German Defence Minister, you had Jean-Claude Juncker, lots of people giving their condolences to France and the French president. This is the president of Mali saying that he was deeply moved by what had happened, an official communique there by him, and also the president of Burkina Faso. So look, lots of reactions today on for that very tragic news.
Yeah. 13 heroes, as the French president said. OK, all right, let's move on to another story. Over in the UK, a furious row going on, isn't there? Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the opposition, has been accused repeatedly of being anti-Semitic and of failing to take action to stamp out anti-Semitism in his party. And the chief rabbi got involved. He doesn't normally get involved in politics, but he took out an op-ed in the Times newspaper, which has sparked a real debate, hasn't it?
He said poison, anti-Semitic poison, and essentially he said that Jeremy Corbyn is not fit to be leader of the party. So this has gone all over the world. This is the Washington Post having picked up on it. Jeremy Corbyn, it was timed well because the Labour's Race and Faith manifesto came out today.
Not for him.
So it sort of torpedoed that somewhat. Yeah. But what else do we have? We have various people kind of picking up on this and saying, kind of detailing the fact that there are...
a very interesting thread.
That's right, Daniel Randall. He details essentially how there has been a systemic problem that has not been effectively tackled from the point of view of many people in the Labour Party, and that there could have been a much tougher stance taken from the top. This is one person saying that she left the Labour Party.
MP,
Labour, which would have been traditionally a party that Jews voted for in the UK.
Absolutely.
So UK Labour earlier this year, because I could no longer remain in a party which today betrays the very values of equality and anti-racism. So lots of reactions such as that coming through. You also had the Archbishop of Canterbury backing the statement in some ways, saying, look, for him to actually say this, it's such an unprecedented thing to do, ought to alert us to the deep sense of insecurity and fear felt by many British Jews. Also a statement by the Muslim Council where they sort of backed what was being said, but then went on the attack of the Conservative Party for Islamophobia. So it's sort of a two-pronged approach there from the Muslim Council in their piece. This is a Times columnist expressing, I suppose, what some people would have felt uneasy about, which is a religious leader getting involved.
Well, because it never happens in the UK. I mean,
right.
I think it's almost unprecedented.
Exactly. So I suppose which would point.
I mean, you've had the Archbishop criticising austerity policies. I think you could say
that's true.
That was perhaps an intervention in politics. But I mean, right before an election to basically come out and say this is.
And I suppose in order to do that, you have to be able to point to the specific incidents and say, look, this is why I'm saying it. It's not. Yeah. But some people then have been saying, first of all, there was no apology from Jeremy Corbyn, who spoke to the media, sort of justifying his leadership. Others then saying, the rabbi has congratulated Boris Johnson on social media in the past and been photographed.
I mean, and he's had some terrible abuse on social media today. the rabbi.
I hadn't seen
people saying that he's paid by the Mossad and
right. The usual
kind of stuff,
anti-Semitic tropes coming through. But in any case, I think it's interesting to note that other spiritual leaders were sort of supportive of what the rabbi had to say. So I think that if you're going to be supported by anybody, to be supported by other faith leaders is a sign of understanding and acknowledgement that the problem is real.
Multi-faith tolerance, yes. And we will be talking about that later in the programme with our London correspondent. So heads up for that. We're going to end in the US.
Yes.
Two big stories coming out of Baltimore City. Now, we just touched on one of them, which is unbelievable. 3 men jailed for 36 years for a murder they did not commit. Today,
teenagers.
And it's quite remarkable to see their reaction. I mean, amazing people not to have bitterness and hatred in their hearts.
Decades of their lives stolen from them in terms of the freedom, at least. They were teenagers when they went into jail, wrongfully jailed, and they're now in their 50s coming out after 36 years. So that obviously has got a huge amount of reaction on social media as well today, Laura. This is just one reaction because there's so many of the NAACP, the National African American Association, etc. Finally, freedom for these men after a hideous and deliberate miscarriage of justice, 36 years of prison, lives stolen as teens. Every district attorney's office must have a real conviction integrity unit, of course. Series such as Making a Murder and all of that have really put a focus on the whole question of wrongful convictions.
Central Park 5.
I haven't seen that yet.
Oh.
Really?
Ava Duvernay, you have to see that.
All right, but certainly wrongful convictions, especially.
Oh, we don't have time to talk about Melania getting booed.
Okay, all right, quickly.
2 seconds.
This was also in Baltimore. We need audio on this, otherwise it doesn't make any sense.
There we are. First Lady Melania.
She got up on stage. She was talking about opioids. No sound on it. Okay, well, let's just trust me on this.
Take our word for it.
Okay, she was booed in Baltimore for nearly a minute at an opioid event held in Baltimore.
She kept going, didn't she?
Not for the first time either. She did keep going, but it's
a bit cringy.
Sign of how divided America is these days.
James, thank you very much. James Frieden there with Media Watch. Now, time for our